If your employer gives you the full use of a company car, then you have to pay fringe benefit tax on the value of the use of this vehicle. To qualify for a claim against this, you must have a proper logbook detailing private and business mileage, etc. SARS has a simple formula to calculate your claim, and SARS's formula works well provided that amounts such as car cost and the code 3802 fringe benefit amounts are 100% correct. If these amounts are not correct, then calculating a claim is much more difficult, but you must know exactly how to do this properly, because if this calculation turns into a dispute with SARS, then you must know exactly what you are doing. SARS's formula for a claim against code 3802 fringe benefit is simply the business distance fraction of total mileage times the fringe benefit amount levied. Note that SARS may allow an employer to add only 20% of the calculated amount as a fringe benefit at salary source, but only if the employer is convinced that virtually all the mileage will be on business. Of course, the portion of the distance actually done privately or on business could vary tremendously and will affect your claim. The mileage figures in your logbook will be used to calculate a claim against taxable income on your assessment. SARS's formula to work out the claim against taxable income says the claim is equal to the code 3802 fringe benefit amount for the car multiplied by business distance divided by total distance. Let's have a look at some of these examples and see exactly how these calculations work. The percentage of the car cost which SARS uses to determine the fringe benefit is 3.5% per month where there's no maintenance plan. If there is a maintenance plan, then the percentage is reduced to 3.25%. Now let's have a look at this case where the car costs 300,000 Rand and it has no maintenance plan. The formula for working out the fringe benefit that the employer uses to get the code 3802 fringe benefit amount is the car cost times the 3.5% per month. Now 80% of this is taxable and it's added to the salary at salary source. So then the fringe benefit amount would be the 300,000 Rand cost of the car times 3.5% is equal to 10,500 Rand per month, or 126,000 Rand for the year. Now 80% of this 10,500 Rand per month is taxable, so that's 8,400 Rand per month, or 100,800 Rand per annum is actually taxable. Now the full amount on the IRP5, the 3802 amount, is the fringe benefit amount for the full year, 126,000 Rand. Even though he's only taxed on 80% of that, the full amount must be shown on the IRP5 as code 3802. Now in this particular example, we can see the total distance done during the tax year was 100,000 kilometers, of which private was 80,000 kilometers or 80%, and the business distance was 20,000 kilometers or 20%. Now SARS's claim formula states that the full fringe benefit amount, that's 126,000, multiplied by the business distance over the total distance will give us the claim. And there we can see the claim in this case is 25,200 Rand. Now the taxpayer was taxed on 100,800, and that's 80% of 126,000. So you can see there that if we subtracted that 25,200 from 126,000, we would get 100,800 Rand. Okay, let's go over this again. It's very important. You can see that while the taxpayer was actually taxed on 100,800 Rand fringe benefit amount during the tax year, 126,000 Rand was reflected on the IRP5 as code 3802 and added to taxable income on the assessment. However, the claim amount of $25,200 effectively reduces the fringe benefit amount on the assessment from $126,000 to $100,800, which is exactly what the taxpayer was actually taxed on during the year. This means everything works out fine. The taxpayer ran up 80% of the total mileage on the company car on private use and paid tax on 80% of the full fringe benefit amount. Having another look at the formula used to determine the code 3802 fringe benefit amount, in order to get a more accurate code 3802 fringe benefit amount on the IRP5, we should take the number of days into account. After all, if the company car was taken away from the employee for the last week of February, then the code 3802 amount should be adjusted accordingly for 359 out of 366 days. The true inclusion amount is the amount of fringe benefit tax that should have actually been levied in theory according to the number of days. The taxpayer should have been taxed on 98872 for the 359 days when he was actually taxed on 100,800 Rand for 366 days. The difference of 27,128 should be the claim allowed. You will come across problems when the code 3802 amount on the IRP5 does not reconcile with the car cost or the number of days of use of the company car on the ITR12. Although SARS asks you to enter the cost of the company car on the ITR12, SARS seems to ignore the fact that something is obviously wrong if the car cost and the days of use do not match up with the code 3802 amount. To illustrate a few examples, I will use the company car calculator in Wintax 2016, which shows both SARS's claim calculations as well as what should actually happen when you use Treasury's true inclusion amount method. Treasury's true inclusion amount is the fringe benefit amount which should have been added to taxable income if you take into account days of usage and mileage figures. This is the screen in Wintax where we can calculate our claim against the fringe benefit levied when we have the full use of a company car. Let's zoom in a little closer. We can see the car value of 300,000 Rand, no maintenance plan, start and end dates of use, start and end mileage, etc. The calculator also allows us to automatically bring over the code 3802 fringe benefit amount from the IRP5 screen, or we can play around by entering our own fringe benefit amounts. In this particular perfect example, we can see that the employer calculated the fringe benefit amount correctly at 126,000 Rand. That is 3.5% of the car value per month for 12 months. Also, we've done 20% of our total mileage on business and 80% privately. Based on the figures entered here, Wintax has calculated what Treasury calls the true inclusion amount as being 100,800 Rand, which is 80% of the fringe benefit amount of 126,000 on the IRP5. Because we did 20% of mileage on business, we should not pay tax on 20% of the fringe benefit amount of 126,000 Rand. This means that both Wintax and SARS both agree that we should be awarded a 20% claim against the fringe benefit amount which was added to our taxable income. You can see that SARS says the fringe benefit amount multiplied by the 20,000 business kilometers divided by the 100,000 total kilometers is 25,200 Rand, and Wintax agrees. Wintax says the claim is the 126,000 fringe benefit amount less the true inclusion amount of 100,800 Rand. Now what if the employer made a mistake and only levied half the fringe benefit amount? Let me change the code 3802 amount to 63,000. SARS still awards the taxpayer a claim, even though the fringe benefit amount for a car of this value used for the whole year was hopelessly too little. WinTax says the true inclusion amount should have been 100,800 Rand instead of 63,000, so the difference of 37,800 Rand should actually be added to taxable income, never mind a claim. A similar mistake would occur if the employer levied too much fringe benefit. Let's say that the code 3802 on the IRP5 was 200,000 Rand. SARS's claim is the 200,000 Rand code 3802 amount times 20,000 over 100,000, which is 40,000 Rand. WinTax says the claim should be 99,200, which is the 200,000 Rand fringe benefit tax levied less the true inclusion amount of 100,800 Rand. Although we have to use SARS's claim here, SARS ignores the fact that the car value and the fringe benefit amount could be hopelessly wrong. If this calculation is ever the focus of a dispute with SARS, then this WinTax calculation could really help you. Let's go back to our original figures. SARS allows the claim to be increased in cases where the employee paid for motoring expenses. Have a look in the top right-hand corner of the calculator. If we enter an amount of 10,000 Rand paid for fuel by the employee, then a portion of this 10,000 Rand based on private distance will be added to the claim. Private distance was 80% of total distance, so the claim will be increased by 8,000 Rand. The reason why the claim is increased by the private distance is that the employee has already paid this tax when the fringe benefit amount was levied at salary source. You may come across a case where an employer acquires a car from a car hire company such as Avis or Hertz and gives a car to an employee as a company car. This is what is known as an operating lease. According to SARS, cases like this have been extremely rare up to now, but they're starting to appear more frequently. The fringe benefit amount will be the car rental amount paid by the employer to the car hire company, plus the fuel paid by the employer. 80% or 20% of this amount will be levied at salary source, and the entire fringe benefit amount will appear on the IRP5 as code 3816, just as with code 3802. The calculator handles operating lease cases just like code 3802 amounts, except that we must not enter a car cost into the calculator. I will now remove the car value. With no car value entered, the calculator will immediately recognize this as an operating lease, and the same rules apply for SARS's claim as with ordinary code 3802 amounts. Without a car value, WinTax cannot work out a claim, cannot work out a true inclusion amount either, so WinTax adopts SARS's claim amount here. You can see here that SARS's claim is the fringe benefit amount for this car multiplied by the business distance over the total distance. Nothing changes with regard to SARS's claim calculation, as SARS's claim calculation ignores the car value anyway. Now let's talk about multiple cars used in 1 year. What if a taxpayer was given the use of more than one company car by his employer in the tax year? Or even the employer might have changed his cars during the tax year. This calculator allows you to enter more than one car. SARS and this calculator use a procedure where they split the code 3802 amounts on the IRP5 between the cars according to the days of use of the cars if the cars were all supplied by the same employer and only one code 3802 amount is on the IRP5. You can select that WinTax does this split automatically for you in cases like this. If the cars came from different employers, or if any of the cars were the result of an operating lease, then this method does not work and cannot be used. You must switch off the option to auto-calculate the fringe benefit splits, and you must then enter the fringe benefit amounts off the IRP5s for each car here. The claim calculations for each car will then be worked out as normal, and the total of the claims will be used to adjust the taxpayer's taxable income. If this taxpayer had done only 10% of total distance on business and 90% of total distance on private mileage, then it stands to reason that he should get less of a claim against his Code 3802 fringe benefit amount, which was added to his income. I've changed the business to only 10,000 kilometers. Now we can see that the true inclusion amount has been changed to 90% of the Code 3802 amount. The difference between the Code 3802 amount and the 126,000 Rand and the true inclusion amount is our claim of 12,600, says Wintax, and SARS agrees. Since we did 90% of mileage privately, we should pay tax on 90% of the Code 3802 amount of 126,000 Rand added to income. The true inclusion amount is obviously also affected by the period for which we had the car. Although the Code 3802 fringe benefit amount is shown on the IRP5, the actual cost of the vehicle entered on the ITR12 is often the taxpayer or the practitioner's estimate. It is often difficult to get the cost or value of the company car from an employer, and SARS themselves will agree with this. There are many reasons for this. A company car may have been given to an employee A for a period and then given to employee B. The car value may have been depreciated by 15% by the time it was given to employee B. A company may have paid a dealership a few million Rand 2 years ago, for example, for 10 vehicles of various models and types. Maybe trade-ins were involved, etc. But for whatever reason, it is often difficult to establish whether the vehicle cost used in determining the fringe benefit amount is correct or not. In disputed cases like this, SARS may simply use the market value of the vehicle at the time of use. SARS has given special permission to companies such as car dealerships where salespeople and staff use company cars which are changed and replaced on a frequent basis. Sales personnel may be given the full use of demo models that are replaced as soon as the vehicle is sold. This change in cars could be as frequent as every few weeks. SARS allows the dealership to divide the total cost of all cars in the fleet available to the salespeople by the number of cars in the fleet and get the average cost, which is used as a common cost value. This means that everyone in the dealership with a company car pays the same amount in fringe benefit tax. Keeping an accurate record of private and business distance may be much more difficult, but records must be kept if they want to submit a claim. Many people in this situation do not even try to keep records, saying that it is simply not worth it and they will then forgo any claim.